Shalom, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Breaking Babylon with Elder Asiy'el. I'm your host. Hope you brothers and sisters are doing well tonight. We have another good show for you tonight. I think this is episode 9, so go ahead and like the video, share it. Let everybody know we're live. We got a good topic tonight, a couple good topics that you can really learn from. So come on in, go ahead and hit the like button. Want to make sure y'all can hear and see me clearly as well too. So if you can let me know in the chat. All right. I can hear myself. So we're good and live. All right. So shalom, brothers and sisters. Once again, this is Breaking Babylon with Elder Asiy'el. We're live every Wednesday at 7:30. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you'll be notified when we're live. Also, we also have a Facebook page, Breaking Babylon with Elder Asiy'el. Just go over Facebook, type me in, give me a like on that channel as well. All right, so we're loud and clear. All right, so like I said, brothers and sisters, we have a good one tonight. We have a good one tonight. A lot of stuff is going on in the earth. It's so much stuff going on that you pretty much have to pick and choose on what you can bring out nightly. I could go live every night if I wanted to. So much stuff going on in the earth. So many things are going on, from the, of course, pandemic, plandemic, or whatever you want to call it, to the election that's going on, all the way down to what we're going to go into today, dealing with imposters, cultural appropriation. We're going to deal with a little bit of that tonight. We're going to deal with the 1619 Project, right? So we have a couple things we're going to go into tonight that you might, if you're focused on one thing, you might miss it, right? And everybody is focusing on what? Either COVID, or the presidential election that's going on, right? Like I said, we don't focus, we don't vote. So on this channel, we pretty much don't go into dealing with the voting and all that other stuff. We'll tell brothers and sisters this, that we are a Bible believing congregation. And if Christ is running, then we'll vote. But other than that, in between Joe Biden and Trump, we don't get into that. So that's why I don't pretty much talk about the elections too much. If y'all want to do that, y'all can go find a channel on that, right? But what we do talk about is stuff that relates directly to black people, Hispanic people, Native people, the world in general, the lies that we've been taught. And that's the purpose of this channel, to expose those lies, to uncover those lies, right? And that's what we're going to do today, right? I only had, at first, only had a couple of topics that I was going to hit tonight, but as the week went on, things just started coming up, right? So even with the new pedophile law, or the Senate Bill 145 that's going on in California, we're going to talk about that tonight too. I'm going to show you something interesting dealing with the Senate Bill 145 and also the progression of the sodomy law, or the homosexual law that was in place in the United States, and show you how that process that you see with the Senate Bill 145 and the sodomy laws that was here in America, how they kind of coincide together, and how the pedophile bill is taking the same steps that the Senate bill is taking now, or the sodomy bill took into make it legal. So what they're doing in California is one step closer to making pedophilia a legal and operable thing that people do, right? So we're going to go into that. I'm going to show you some interesting things dealing with that. Make sure y'all hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Also, our church channel, Israelite Temple of the Living God. We on Facebook. We on YouTube. We go live on Fridays at 8 p.m. Our San Antonio church under Officer Karam Ben Israel. Also, we go live on Saturdays at 3 p.m. where I teach the Sabbath lesson. So make sure you tune in with us on the Sabbath. Get your Sabbath lesson, and also tune in with us on Wednesday at Breaking Babylon to get your get some more, a podcast type of show. I also want to mention that in this show, make sure y'all participate, y'all interactive, y'all type it in the chat, giving your feedback. Every once in a while I read your comment and participate, right? This is what this topic is on Wednesday. It's an interactive show, so we want to interact with the people that are watching. All right, so let's get into our first topic tonight, and it's going to deal with Jessica Krug, right? Jessica Krug. And what we do, like we do every time, is we put the topics. I want y'all to be able to see this on your screen as well. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to go into this first lesson, or this first topic, excuse me, this article, and I'm going to show you some things here, right? So, let's go into this one, brothers and sisters. I found this one to be funny, right? With anything, you have to find the humor in everything, right? Let's read the title. A white teacher has admitted lying about being black, right? I don't know how many of y'all heard about this story. I saw it in passing. I didn't really give it any attention at first, but something sparked my mind after pretty much a couple days later. I said, you know what? Nick Cannon was pulled through the mud when he said that we were the Jews. That we were the Israelites, and the people that were claiming to be Jews were not the real people. Now that you have it, this white lady, this white woman here, Miss Krug, guess what? She's a white woman and also Jewish, but lied about being black. Now, at first, I was like, you know what? Should I be upset about this? No, I shouldn't, because the Jewish people claim to be us all the time. So this is nothing different. This is nothing new. The Jewish people are claiming to be us. Why would I get mad at this lady claiming to be black? So I started to look at it in a different light. If I'm going to get mad at her, if I'm going to be mad at her for claiming to be black, we should be mad at the Jewish people. See? So, but her issue is that she lied. She made money off claiming to be black, right? A cultural appropriation, meaning she used being black to sell books to get an advantage, being a so-called minority, right? But we noticed that because what happened? The Jewish people do it as well. They claim to be Jews because the people around the world that are religious understand that the Jewish people or the Jews are the chosen of God. Like the Bible says, if you bless them, I will bless you. So the Jewish people are guilty of this same thing this teacher is guilty of. Cultural appropriation. Right? Let's read a little bit into this. This is the white lady, right? Now, I don't know how someone could not see that she's a European. I don't see it. She don't look native. She don't look Hispanic. She don't look black. She don't look like her parents. It's nothing. But we're fooled because somebody might talk a certain way. They put a nose ring in. They put big earrings to look cultured, urban, and we fall for it. We let Justin Timberlake get away with it. That's cultural appropriation too. Justin Timberlake, we let the Backstreet Boys, they get up and dance like Negroes, and nobody says anything. So this has been happening, brothers and sisters. Why are we mad? I see a lot of brothers and sisters that are mad because they saw this. Why are you mad? We let Justin Timberlake get away with it. We let MC Hammer get away with it. And guess what they did? Guess what they did? Once they made money, they returned to their normal selves. They weren't hanging around with Negroes. Once they made money, once they used the culture to get what they wanted, they gave it back. So, okay, we're good. I got what I wanted. I'm good now. Likewise, this teacher. She came in, lied about being black her whole life, made some money. It's no longer good to her, so now she's giving it back. Let's get into it. We got a lot of stuff I want to get into, so I'm not going to waste much time on this lady. I just found it to be funny. A vocal activist, author, and professor of African American history at George Washington University. I mean, that right there should tell you something. You have a white woman teaching black history. And it's funny because we're going to go into that in the 1619 Project. That they are why is Trump concerned with what's being taught in schools unless they always want us to follow under their American history? So here you have an example of a white woman teaching African American history. At George Washington University, Jessica Krug has confessed that she lied about being black for a number of years, but is actually a white Jewish woman. The story, which echoes that of the artist Rachel Dolezal, who dangerously refers to herself as a transracial. So you might as well, we have all these other titles. So was broken by an essay written by Jessica on Medium. Reports say that she decided to come clean after 2 students at the university she taught in raised suspicion. Right? So listen what it said. In the essay, Jessica, who reportedly also used the alias Jess La Bombaria, details how she lied repeatedly over the years and used her false identity to get ahead in her chosen career, even writing a book about politics on slavery. She even decided to work fugitive modernities to her ancestors. She dedicated a book to her ancestors, her black ancestors. Brothers and sisters, we cannot make this stuff up. We can't make it up, brothers and sisters. And we shouldn't be mad about it. They have always stolen our identities. They have. That's the truth. Let's keep going. She said, my ancestors, unknown, unnamed, who bled life into a future that had no reason to believe could or should exist. My brother, the fastest, the smartest, the most charming of us all. Those whose names I cannot say for their own safety, whether in Barrio, in Angola, or in Brazil. So this is where she's trying to say our people from. For the better part of my adult life, every move I have made, every relationship I have formed have been rooted in the napalm toxic soil of lies. Now, this is the fabric or framework of America and the people who claim to be us. That's what the Bible says. Your father have inherited lies. So what am I doing? I'm paralleling something on a small level to the overall context of America. Not just any lies, wrote Krug, as part of her coming clean. To an escalating degree over my adult life, I have eschewed my life experience as a white Jewish child in suburban Kansas City under various assumed identities within a blackness that I had no right to claim. So first she said first North African blackness, then U.S. rooted blackness, then Caribbean rooted Bronx blackness. So she would change in between African blackness, regular black people in America, and hood, how our sisters are, the hood rooted Bronx blackness with the accents and all that. Right? This the lady here. Now you tell me, so I don't know, or if she walked in and told you she was black, what the hell would you look? She walked in the classroom and told you she gonna teach you about black history. See, that's why we're in need of the 1619 Project. Because we have lived under this umbrella too long, where we allow other people to teach us our history. And we're going to show you in a few minutes how Donald Trump is fighting against the 1619 Project, how the government is fighting it as a whole. Why are they fighting it as a whole? Because they want to continue to teach you American history. And guess what? American history does not teach you black people, Hispanic people, who you are. I found that to be the most disturbing thing that I've ever seen in a government, to deny a people the right to learn their history. How evil can you be? And teach them that we should learn American history. Black people, Hispanic people are in the position they're in because we have no clue what happened to us. And a minute that we try to find out, is shut down. This is something we should be looking at, brothers and sisters. Why is this being shut down? I took a look at the 1619 project, and what I seen was a threat to the establishment. Things that they did not want to get out. Things that can be proven by evidence. But what they're doing is the government is making this woman that's over it, Nicole Jones, as someone that's irrational and has no clue about scholastic history, or in their words, and I quote, writing revisionist history, meaning that we are reinterpreting history basically in our own eyes, how we want to interpret. No, we're interpreting history truthfully because you didn't. So you will find all these buzzwords that they use: revisionist history, irrational, right? What's irrational is that people can be in America for all this time and have no clue what happened to them. Ask your average black person, how did you get to America? Most of them don't know. They'll say slavery. And it makes it seem like our history only started during slavery. Right? You meet any other ethnic group or any other family of culture or groups and ask them, where's your origin? They'll be able to track it down and tell you. Black and Hispanic people can't. And Trump is trying to take that right of us learning our history as something as we're promoting racism. How can a people that's been oppressed, that's on the bottom, be guilty of racism? Do they understand the definition of racism? Racism is when you hold one group down over the other, like America has done. And when you try to hold that one group down remember, it's freedom of religion, you have a freedom to learn your history. When you try to oppress or hold that history and hide that history from a people, that's racism. How can black people be racist when we want to learn who we are? For you to be racist, you have to know who you are. Let me keep going. Now, I read into this. This is very sad. This same lady did not go to her mother's funeral because she didn't want to be found out. Meaning, if she would have went to the funeral, people would have known that her parents were white people. So to hold up this scam, she did not go to her own mother's funeral, nor did she go and visit her mother, who was sick with pneumonia. This is how deep this stuff goes, brothers and sisters. Watch this. She also acknowledged how harmful cultural appropriation is and admitted to gaslighting her loved ones. I quote, "I have not only claimed these identities as my own when I absolutely no right to do so. When doing so, this is a very epitome of violence, of thievery, and appropriation of the myriad of ways in which non-black people continue to use and abuse black identities and cultures. But I have found intimate relationships with loving, compassionate people who have trusted and cared for me when I have deserved neither trust nor caring. Listen, people have fought together with me and have fought for me, and my continued appropriation of black Caribbean identity is not only, in the starkest terms, wrong, unethical, immoral, anti-black, colonial." See that? What does she mean by colonial? When people go in power, they take over your identities. They take over what they feel like is worthy. They take it from themselves and name it something else. Maybe like her colonial forefathers, right? How they went into Egypt and took over the land and made the black dark people their white people. That's an example. how Israel, when we were taken in captivity in 70 AD, how the Europeans came in and started calling themselves Jews, similar to that. But it means that every step that I've taken has gaslighted those who I loved. Now here we go. Here's the excuse. Now, white people never take accountability for anything. They always blame other people. It's always something, right? It's always something. By way of explanation, Krug says she has been battling mental health demons for a long time in response to traumatic experience that took place during her childhood and teenage years. Now, no group of people on the planet Earth, have went through the atrocities that Black and Hispanic people have went through. And we're not trying to be white people. We're not trying to be other groups. No group of people on the planet Earth has suffered like Black and Hispanic people have suffered. And we're still Black and Hispanic people. We're not trying to be, as a whole, we're not trying to be other groups. So how is this an excuse? Let me say it again. Black people, Hispanic people, Native people have suffered much in this country and around the world. Right? That gives us no excuse to try to take hold to another culture as an excuse. Right? So check this out. So of course people tweeted and put in their and look, she has books for sale. Buy a copy for just $20. Right? So this is what I wanted to show, that I'm not going to spend, because what we're going to go into is deeper than this. And what it's going to do is it goes right in with this, with this type of story we just reviewed. Right? And why it's important that Black people, Hispanic people, that we learned. I went to school all those years, and I didn't learn Egypt was in Africa until I came into the truth. And this is the cycle that Trump and the U.S. government is wanting to continue. The best thing for Black and Hispanic people is to listen. We have to come together and build our own things. Winston Churchill says, and whoever, Winston Churchill says that history is written by the victor. And I'm paraphrasing, right? That's his quote, that history is written by those who are the victors, those who came into power. Black people, Hispanic people, we have no power. So we're subject to the history that's given to us. And that history has not told us why and where we came from. It has all been lies. History has been written by those who have oppressed us, who have colonized us. Our colonial masters, they have written the history for us. It does the colonizers are not, it does them no good to tell us the truth. But it profits them to tell us lies. Like one lie. Listen, you'll receive your kingdom in heaven. Meanwhile, he's receiving his kingdom on earth. That's a lie. Slaves obey your master. That's a lie. The reason they didn't want us to teach, to read. Why? Because we will learn the history. It was illegal for slaves to learn how to read and write. Why? Knowledge is power. Because you will start asking questions like, well, I'm reading this Bible and I see a people that's in ancient Egypt. They suffered slavery under an oppressive master of Pharaoh. We are suffering similar atrocities here in the same conditions. We're building another man's kingdom. These stories are similar. Are we the children of Israel? So they said, no, we can't allow them to read. This is the exact same thing they doing now, brothers and sisters. We finna go into this. We cannot allow them to read. Why? Because if they started reading, they will start asking questions. Okay, I'm reading this book. I see your history, but where is mine? It's obvious I didn't come from Europe, because I don't see my people mentioned or being mentioned within your writings. So what about my history? You'll start asking questions. See? So as long as we were good Negroes, we didn't ask questions. We went to history class and learned about Columbus and how great white people have been and didn't ask questions, we passed. But the minute we started to wake up and say, wait a minute, it's more to this people that meets their eye, then we irrational. Now we want to write revisionist history. America has lied ever since the founding fathers have lied ever since they stepped foot here from Europe. I posted a post yesterday dealing with Thomas Jefferson. How during the American Revolution, how he said all men are created equal, yet he owned 600 slaves. So this very country is the country itself is made of hypocrisy, and it was never made for you and me, black and Hispanics. Why? If all men are created equal, then I should have an equal right to you. I shouldn't be your slave. I shouldn't be your property. But since they even refer to black people and Hispanic people as humans, they refer to us as property. So when it says all men are created equal, you are not a man. You are not counted as a man. So when we bring out this history and show that the basis of America was built off racism, that's not irrational. That's not a conspiracy theory. And you're gonna see that the counter claims that this lady received dealing with the 1619 Project, you're going to see all the counter claims that everything that people can do to discredit the information. From the point of talking about is one, and we're going to go into that and thank the Most High that I'm able to research these things. I'm into history. So a lot of this stuff that white people, historians say, is a lie dealing with history. Because they have an agenda to cover up America's atrocities. They have an agenda to make America seem like this great and equal country, but it's not. Nor would it ever be. Let's see. Now, let's go into the next thing, right? Like I said earlier, right? It's more to this Jessica Krug thing, but I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to leave it with that. I want to jump into this 1619 Project that I found very disturbing. That Donald Trump would do this. Now, like we said earlier, like I've always said, I like Trump. Why do I like Trump? Trump does not hide his racism. So you want somebody to straight out and tell you, I don't like you. What's dangerous is that snake slithering and crawling in the grass. See? Trump will come out and tell you, I don't like you. You're racist. What else do y'all have to lose? Yeah, I like that. Right? But let's go into the story. Right. Israel Jones said we got Black History Month once a year, and it's the shortest month of the year, 28 days. And you know February is not even supposed to be part of the calendar. Let's get them niggas the shortest month of the year to talk about Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, and all those things. What about W.E.B. Du Bois? What about Medgar Evers? What about Huey P. Newton of the Black Panthers? I don't see that. I can tell you, I have when I was in school, I got suspended for writing an essay paper about Malcolm X. They said pick somebody you look up to and you want to write about that did something for black people. I picked Malcolm X. I got kicked out of history class for the rest of the year. Show you how dangerous, this was in high school, to show you how dangerous that type of information is on the ears of black people. Not saying, I don't agree with everything Malcolm X did, but the liberation in what Malcolm stood for was not what white people want. I respect Dr. King, so I will never speak evil about Dr. King. I don't believe every brother's mission is not the same. Everybody can't be radical. You need the radical brothers, and you need the ones that lay back. Why do you need that? Because now we can show that we've tried to march and hold hands. It didn't work. We've tried the radical part. It didn't work. So we can't, now we have covered all fields, and we've shown that you are impossible to get along with. We've tried both sides, because if we didn't have Dr. Martin Luther King, white people would say, well, maybe y'all should try a gentler approach. We did. We tried with Dr. King. Right? Dr. King said, I feel like I've integrated my people into a burning house. Then Malcolm came on the scene with a more radical disposition on the issue of racism. That got more attention because they are scared of any black people, Hispanic people, that's willing to die for what they believe in. They fear that. Right? Dr. Khalid Muhammad. They definitely don't want you to teach about those soldiers. Right? Right? So just to name a few. But if they teach this type of history, this 1619 project, you're going to learn about Huey P. Newton, Dr. Newton, Huey P. People think the Black Panthers was out killing people. The Black Panthers was out making breakfast for children, plates for kids before they went to school, places for kids to go so they can escape the violence and the murderous cops that were in the neighborhood. They were self-defense for when the crooked cops would come in and beat you with billy clubs and stick dogs on you. That was the purpose of the Panthers. It had nothing to do with a racist organization. But that's what they feed to you, brothers and sisters, the lies. The Panthers I've never seen the Panthers kill anyone based off their color. Matter of fact, they allowed Hispanic people and white folks to help them in the early years. So don't let them, we have done the research. So listen, let's go into this. Call Trump's attack on the 1619 Project what they are: censorship of American history. That's exactly what. Now, this is Seth Cohen. I'm sure he's a Jewish man. And guess what he's doing? He's fighting on the behalf of the history to be shown and need to be shown. What is Trump censoring? And why is Donald Trump censoring the truth? On Sunday morning, President Trump tweeted an attack on the 1619 Project. Like I said, once again, the 1619 Project is a project that they wanted to implement into schools as part of the curriculum. So it would teach Black and Hispanic children. It has Black and Hispanic history lessons within it. So it's just not for Black people. It's for Hispanic people too, and Native people. So the curriculum was aimed towards these minority groups to teach them their true history, the history about America. This is not something someone is making up. Did not we come on slave ships? Did not we suffer did not we suffer all type of issues and oppression over here in America? Did not we go through the black codes, right? Did not they give us 40 acres and a mule and take it back? After that, they put in black codes to make sure we would never be able to succeed. Right after that, they went into Jim Crow laws. Right after that, they went into civil rights. All the way up until this time, we still dealing with the same issues. So the issue that's in the information that's within this 1619 project is critical for Black and Hispanic people. It's critical that we learn this true history. It's a saying, how do you know where to go if you don't know where you came from? But if you don't know where you came from, you allow other people to lead you. On Sunday morning, President Trump tweeted an attack on the 1619 project, threatening to withhold funding from California schools teaching the popular journalist project focused on the rise and impact of slavery in the United States. So Donald Trump is willing to withhold funds from a California school if they teach the 1619 project. Teach Black and Hispanic people their history. See? With his newest tweet, the president's action raised a troubling question. Of course it did. What question is this? Why is the Trump administration threatening to censor the way schools teach about the history of slavery and racism in the United States? That's a good question. Why is Trump concerned about how schools teach about the history of slavery? Slavery is slavery is a very dark history. It's nothing good that you can teach about it. But they don't want you to teach the truth about it. They just want you to teach a watered down version of slavery and racism. The president's assertion came in response to a tweet from an unverified account stating that California schools were teaching the 1619 project curriculum. Donald Trump is now responding to people, according to them, that don't have a verified account, meaning a check mark. Meaning it might just be a regular person. Trump is stooping down very low, the president of the United States, to answer an unverified account. This is how, listen, if that don't say something to you, brothers and sisters, I don't know what is. I don't know how to get your attention. The very fact that Trump is concerned in responding to unverified accounts shows you everything. In response, Trump tweeted, "The Department of Education is looking at this. If so, they will not be funded." Listen to that. The Department of Education is looking into whether California schools are teaching the 1619 project. And if they are, they will not be funded, according to Donald Trump. See? The 1619 Project is a long-form journalism of multimedia initiative of the New York Times Magazine, started in August of 2018, 400 years after African slaves first landed on the shores of America. Now, whether or not you agree when we first came over here in 1619, that's irrelevant to the point, right? I don't agree with the 1619 date. I believe we were here a lot earlier, and we have a lot of evidence that we were here a lot earlier than 1619. But nevertheless, it does not take away from the fact that they're trying to hide the history, right? In its own words, the project aims to reframe the country's history by placing the consequences of slavery and its contributions of Black Americans at the very center of our national narrative. Now, what this is saying is, if you tell the truth about America, you would have to rewrite the history. That's the truth. If we are to tell the truth about American history, it would have to be rewritten. And what would happen is white people will owe us way more than reparations. What am I saying? If we are to be honest and true, they would have to get the hell out the country. If we to be honest on what's owed to Black and Hispanic people. If we are to deal with true history, you came and stole something from the natives. Then wrote a bunch of treaties that you did not uphold. Then established the Border Patrol to keep the native people from their own land. Just by that alone disqualifies you. You should go home. See? So if we are to be honest about American history, Europeans are not native to this land. That's the honest to God truth. Who made them God? Who told them to come here and establish colonies, bring over slaves to this land, oppress the people, steal from the Native Americans and put them on reservations? Who gave them the permission to do that? Well, according to them, Christianity. The Roman Catholic Church. So if we are to be honest about American history, America would have to repent from her sins, and that repentance will require her to leave and give the land back to the people. So this is why they try their best to hide the information. They don't want to do what's right. They want to keep us blind and under this false narrative of every man is created equal, and the Declaration of Independence was in the U.S. Constitutions, and all that was made for black people. Brothers and sisters, don't be fooled. Look up the 3/5 Compromise. How the North wanted to abolish slavery, but the South wanted to keep it. So what they did was they came to an agreement that since it's way more slaves in the South, what they were trying to fight, they was fighting for different offices in the government. And the more people you have to represent in certain areas, the more representation you get in the House. So in the South had not only people, they had a bunch of slaves, and they knew, well, if we are to count the people in the South, they would be the majority in the House. So what did they do? They both cleverly came up with the 3/5 Compromise. What is that? They said, well, we only count three of your 5 slaves as people. So 3/5, 3 of them are people, the other 2 are not people. And now don't think that the South were doing anything good. They wanted to keep it like it was because they consider black people as property. So the South that wasn't doing it for your favor, and the North wasn't doing it for your favor. They wanted to do it because they wanted to continue slavery and use you as property. Also, the North referred to us as property too. So, and this is during the time of this is after the Declaration of Independence that was drawn up on July 4th. See, listen, America has even lied to you about its birth. They actually declared themselves independent from the British July the 2nd, not the 4th. They adopted the Declaration of Independence on the 4th. It wasn't signed till August 2nd. That's how much they lied to you. So what you doing on July 4th? They lied to you about everything. See? So they lie about, that's what everything within the history they lie about. So when you were in slavery, they weren't considering you. You was counted as property. So when they try to use that, well, they're teaching revisionist history, and this is what the forefathers drew up in the Declaration of Independence in the U.S. Constitution. They drawing this up so it wasn't for you. It was not for you. Black people was here when they wrote that up, and it was nothing about Negroes in there. Matter of fact, they wrote laws against you to keep you in slavery. Like they wrote laws saying any white person that marry, this is in Virginia, any white person that married a Negro or a slave would be banished from the colony forever. These are the laws that they brought against you. Black people. Constitution was out then. Because what you're going to see is the counterattacks on the 1619 Project. They're going to bring in all these things that the forefathers wrote for us and the freedoms that they wanted to give us. That didn't apply to Black and Hispanic people. Recently, Recently, the 1619 Project teamed up with the Pulitzer Center to develop the school curriculum to use 1619 Project content in classrooms. Trump's Sunday morning tweet continues a trend in his administration provocative actions regarding educational approaches to racial injustice in America. Right? For example, on Friday, the Trump administration announced that it was planning to cease diversity training that is deemed anti-American. Now, listen. Now, Trump is trying to take away courses where it would train you to learn about other people. Let me read it again. For example, on Friday, Trump administration announced that it was planning to cease diversity training that it deemed anti-American. In a 2-page memo addressed to the leadership of federal agency, Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Vought specifically directed federal executives to begin the process of identifying contracts with race-related content that it finds offensive. Now, this is what they will find offensive. This is what they should look for. All agencies are directed to begin to identify all contracts or other agency spending related to any training on, and I quote, critical race theory, white privilege, or any other training or propaganda effort that teaches or suggests that, one, that the United States is inherently racist or an evil country, or two, that any race or ethnicity is inherently racist or evil, the memo states. What are they hiding, brothers and sisters? So he wanted to take away programs that show you, yeah, it is a white privilege in America. Everybody knows that, even white people. White people have admitted, yeah, we know it's a certain privilege we get that black people don't get. So Trump is trying to remove that? Why? The critical race theory is no theory. There is white privilege. There is the very country, America was built on racism. It's no way around that. It's no way around that. First of all, let's show you the definition of racism according to white people. Now, listen. Racism, right? So how was, for us to understand this in context, how was America established? Now, racism, according to the definition, is this: prejudice, discrimination, antagonism directed against a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular racial or ethnic group. Typically one that is a minority or marginalized. Was not America based off this? When they saw the Indians, they discriminated against the Indians. They were prejudiced against the Indians. When they saw black people, what was it? Racism. When they brought us to the shores of America, it was on racism. Do we have to go into the early historians, the early history books, to show you how they felt about black people? How they said we were inferior? That's racism. That we were inferior intellectually? That's racism. That we were made to be slaves because we served from the curse of Ham? That is racism. Let's see what discrimination is. So how can black people be racist? Discrimination, the unjust and prejudiced treatment of different categories of people. Did not they treat us unjustly? Who are the racists? Who took us from Africa, took us to the shores of America, stripped us of our identity, gave us European names, gave us white Jesus Christ, right? Gave us their religion and their holidays, told us that we were inferior to white people. What people did that? Let's read it again. Discrimination. The unjust and prejudicial treatment of different categories of people or things, especially on the grounds of race, age, and sex. That is racism. Discrimination is racism. How is America founded once again? They just didn't go, well, we just gonna get anybody. They went to Africa and said, these niggas are made good slaves on the basis of their race. How can black people be racist? See, we showed you that type of argument how the Jewish people do a while ago and during that lesson with Nick Cannon. How the victim now tries to victim shame and make it seem like you're doing something wrong. How the attacker, the aggressor now becomes the victim and call the victim racist. Black people didn't bring white folks on the slaves of Africa and make them work 400 years for free. We didn't do that. Then if we did, yeah, that's racism. So when we go back to this and we show you that America was founded on racism, we have proof, we have evidence. This is not something we just saying. The very makeup of America was born on racism. Them downgrading in feeling that a group was inferior to them and they had the right to use them to establish a country. That's racism. So it's not just a theory. It's not propaganda. It is evident. Let's keep going. Despite the timing, Trump's tweet isn't the first instance the Trump administration and its allies targeted the 1619 Project. Now, a lot of us didn't know about the 1619 Project. I heard about it, but I didn't look deep into it. Now that I've looked deeper into it, I feel like it's something that should be taught. It's the truth. But guess what? In July, Senator Mr. Cotton, because he wants you back on cotton fields, they want America great again, introduced the congressional legislation titled the Saving America History Act of 2020. So this is the counter narrative to the 1619 Project, the Saving America History. Now, in itself, that should get your mind wondering. Everything America try to save, it benefits white people. It benefits Europeans, to be honest. Let's be honest. So anything they fight to save is in interest of them. So they want to save America. Why? Because it keeps you a dumb Negro. It keeps you inferior. It keeps you down. It keeps you depending on them. So of course they want to save American history. Now we put American, we need to put that in quotes. Saving American history. That's their history. What they gave you. It don't mean it's true. So this guy drew up an act and submitted the act to stop funding to any school in California that were thinking about teaching the 1619 Project. This is how evil these people are. Saving America History Act of 2020. That sounds so patriotic. That sounds just like a racist government to say Saving American History Act of 2020. Saving the same history that they hid from us, lied to us all this time. Up until now, black people didn't know who we were. Now we starting to figure it out. Now they trying to save face. Because they want your children, they want us to forget, and they want our children to grow up and go to these public schools, these devil camps, these indoctrinated schools, and learn about American history, not your history. If anyone is guilty of revisionist history, it's who? What did Trump say? Anybody that's guilty of revisionist history will be Department of Education. Y'all been in school. Everybody that's listening is out of school. What did you learn in school? What did you learn about black people in school? So they have a Saving American Act of 2020. Now, I want to go into this. I want to show you this Saving America's Act, right? They have to save face, right? They have to clean it up because what they thought was all this stuff that happened with George Floyd, it would just disappear like everything else and we would go back to sleep. But what happened is COVID, all praise to the Most High, whether it's a pandemic, whatever, it's all of the Most High God. God calls everybody to sit the hell down and look what's going on. And now the floodgates are opening up. This is divine intervention from the Most High God. It says in the last days, knowledge shall increase in the earth. This is how God will. These are the steps God will take to get your attention. He will humble you. In every situation where he wanted to get to a person, he humbled them. God is humbling America, so that American can sit down and see its evils, and that the people that the people that they have been killing and oppressing all this time will wake up and see what's really going on. This is all from the Most High God. And we have to give all praise and honor to the Most High God for this revelation, for this intervention, his divine intervention in these last days. We have to give all praise to the Most High God. Because if we relied on white people, Trump and the government, we'll be forever asking who we are. God has revealed who we are in the Bible. He has shown us who we are. If we further learn who we are during the 1619 project, that's going to further our information and really tie us back. And what it's going to do is your youngsters, these little kids, these babies, they're going to grow up learning their true history, and they're going to be scholars in it. And that's what they're afraid of, that they're going to use this history, get the true history of it, tie it back to who we are in the Bible, and show how evil this country has been to black people. That's what they don't want. That's what they don't want. Watch this. Watch this. Now, I'm going to go into this the Saving American History Act of 2020. Now, brothers and sisters, keep in mind, no one is saying that they're not going to teach American history. They're not replacing American history with 1619 Project, but the 1619 Project is asking to implement this curriculum within your history already. So why are they talking about saving American history? Why do you think they're saying that? That should tell you it's racism. The fact that the way they have it written, like the 1619 Project is trying to replace a secular American history. It's not. It's just saying, hey, put us in a small place where y'all can teach this right here. But yet they have these acts, Saving American History Act of 2020. See? That should tell you something. Let's go into the bill, shall we? Let me make this bigger so y'all can see it nice and big. And this is a real document. What is the document for? To prohibit federal funds from being made available to teach the 1619 Project curriculum in elementary schools and secondary schools and for other purposes. Right? So listen to this. In the Senate of the United States, Mr. Cotton introduced the following bill, which read twice and referred to the committee on. They don't give the date. It just give a bill here. To prohibit federal funds from being made available to teach the 1619 Project curriculum in elementary schools and secondary schools and for other purposes. In a few minutes, we're going to take a look at this 1619 project curriculum that they have available to people for people to see it. So keep in mind, they're not trying to replace secular American history. What they're saying is, let's implement the 1619 project, the history of black people, since we learn about white folks all year. Let's put in a point where we can learn about black history. What's wrong with that? But what it comes with, it's no easy way to teach black history. When you teach black history, it's dark and evil. It's death and destruction. So they don't want that truth to come out. They can lie to you all day and say Columbus was looking for a fountain of youth and these people did that all year. How did they stretch Columbus out all year? Then come to find out, Columbus wasn't looking for a fountain of youth at all. Columbus was under the protection of Spain, and they sent them out to look for the 12 tribes of Israel and gold and gold and valuables in other lands. And he took with him, under the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican, papal bills saying that if he encountered any heathens, he had permission to take the land and convert them to Christianity. Look it up. Look it up. This is American history. This is how America was established. Columbus went down to the islands, the Caribbeans. Right? That same process was used on America. All right, so let's see what this act is about. The true date of America's founding is July 4th, 1776. Lies. America's true independence, so-called independence, was July the 2nd when they declared themselves independent. As independent states, it was July the 2nd, 1776. July 4th, that's when they adopted the Declaration of Independence. Now, that wasn't signed until August the 2nd. Go look it up. They lie to you about everything. Why in the hell you popping firecrackers on the 4th when your so-called Independence Day was on the 2nd? If they lie about something small like that, I can't trust these people. The self-evident truths set forth by the Declaration and the fundamental principles upon which America was founded. Listen to this is how they talk, right? They make it seem like it's for you too. An activist movement is now gaining momentum. Activist movement. See, it's always that terminology is everything. Activist movement. So it sounds like black activists because they call the Panthers an activist group. See, they call the Nation of Islam activist groups. So when they use certain keywords, it automatically sparks some in your mind. Oh, they must be anti-this. They must be anti-government. They must be anti-this. These are words that they use. Do not be fooled. They are very wise on how they write things. An activist movement is now gaining momentum to deny this history by claiming that America was not founded on the ideas of the Declaration, but rather on slavery and oppression. Some things we don't have to prove. America would not be what it is if they had not taken slaves from Africa. I mean, that's a fact no one can refute. No scholar, no serious scholar can refute that. And I say serious scholar for a reason. No serious scholar will agree that with this statement. The ideals of America was to bring slaves from Africa, use them to build up America, right? Lie to them of an independence that they never received, even to this day. So, yeah, it's true. America was founded on slavery and oppression. I mean, no serious scholar will say otherwise. And I've read them. Not secondary sources. I've read all the histories of, not all the history, but a majority of the histories. I've scanned through them, and it said America would not would not be what it is had it not been for slaves. The cotton shirt that we still wear today is the same cotton that our forefathers picked over 400 years ago. That's a known fact. See? Now, listen what he further says. This distortion of American history is being taught to children in public schools and classrooms via the New York Times 1619 Project, which claims that nearly everything that has truly made America exceptional grew out of slavery. That is a fact, sir. White people were not working to make America great. I don't recall white people as a majority out making America what is great. Your J.P. Morgan received his riches off slave labor. J.P. Morgan at the bank. Majority of your banks that you see received this fortune off slavery. How do we prove it? The very fact that your presidents, Thomas Jefferson, I think was the third president, owned 600 slaves. How can you possibly be a serious scholar and not see that? It is sad that this guy is in government. He's a part of the government and he's clueless. And it shows what I've always said. White people are living in an altered reality from everybody else. That whatever they were taught in their history, whatever they were taught in school, they believe it without checking. And he honestly believed that America, well, you tell me how America became what it is. Take away black people and show me and see if America is as great as it is without the slaves. This is what's irrational is these statements here. No serious person will agree with that. No serious historian would agree with that. America is great in what it is today because of slave labor. That's just the truth. The 1619 Project is a racially divisive and revisionist account of history that threatens the integrity of the Union by denying the true principles of which it was founded. That's a patriotic statement to play on play on your emotions. Black people, don't fall for it. When they wrote that, they were not thinking about your black behind. When they wrote when they wrote the interests of America, they were not thinking about you. When they were in their meeting halls and when the Continental Congress got together, niggas wasn't up in there. It was all white folks. And when you go into those places, you take a representative for you. I didn't see those slaves. No one time in no record that I've ever read that have I ever seen a black slave inside of any of those meetings representing the interests of black people. So when they wrote the interests of America, it didn't have you in mind. Why? Because you were on the slave you was in the plantations working. You were considered property. See? So I never read anything where black people had representation and was able to speak on the behalf of black people in any of their meetings. So when they say stuff like this, the 1619 Project is racially divisive and revisionist account of history that threatens the integrity of the Union. Black people, where were we at? We wasn't representing ourselves at the Union by denying the true principles in which it was founded. See, most black people fall for this type of rhetoric. We don't. The only laws that are equal to all men is the laws of God. You'll be a fool. We've been complaining that we don't receive justice. We've been complaining since we've been in America that those laws created for America, for some reason it's not dealing with us. Some reason it don't apply to us. We don't receive the same justice. They only say these things to paint a picture that they want you to see. So they put these buzzwords together that our forefathers, like it was your forefathers. Wasn't no Negroes up in there. I'm sorry, I gotta say it like that because black people understand what I mean. When they forefathers was in these meetings writing down, when Jefferson was dealing with the Declaration of Independence, you wasn't in the room. Let me stop. You were in the room. You was making sure his pen was full of ink. You was refilling, getting them something to drink. Yeah, you was in the room. You weren't participating. The federal government has a strong interest in promoting an accurate account of the nation's history. So, according to them, what they have taught you so far is an accurate account of the nation's history. So, what he's saying is, what we have taught Negroes so far is an accurate history of American history. Is an accurate account of American history. Through the public schools and forming young people into knowledgeable and patriotic citizens. See? That's all I wanted to read. That's all I'm going to read on that. Israel Jones said they destroyed Black Wall Street. Of course they did. Of course they did. Of course they did. And they would destroy anything when black people come together. That's how they are. Right? So let's get this. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. All right, so now let's keep going to this. Make sure y'all like, subscribe to the channel. Please support the work. So get this stuff out. Get the information out here because they're really trying to destroy our children, right? And they use these patriotic words and make it seem like when they wrote the Constitution and all these things, the Declaration of Independence, that they had us in mind. They didn't. When they wanted to declare themselves independent, it was all for their own interests. So they wouldn't be under the interest and taxation of the British. I mean, that's why it didn't have nothing to do with black folks. Right? So don't let them lie to you. We were nowhere involved in that. Right? But I want to go back to this. Let's go back to this. Right? Let's go back to this so I can show you this. Make sure y'all like, subscribe to the channel. Please support this work. Right? Hold on real quick. All right, so now let's go into this. Let's go back to that article I just had up, right? I want to go back to that. Let's keep reading. The proposed legislation claims that, and I quote, an activist movement is now gaining momentum to deny this history by claiming that America was not founded on the ideals of the Declaration of Independence, but rather on slavery and oppression. It goes on to state that the 1619 Project is a racially defensive and revisionist account of history that threatens the integrity of the Union by denying the true principles on which it was founded. We just read that a few minutes ago. Both Trump's tweet as well as Cotton's proposed legislation beg a troubling question. Why are Republican leaders trying to censor the teaching about the history of slavery and racism in the United States? And why now? Let's see why now. During a time when the United States is engaged in an emotional and increasingly confrontational dialogue over the legacy of its racist past. This is from a Jewish person. I'm assuming he's Jewish. Cohen usually means that's a Jewish last name. And he's admitting too America's racist past. So when we saying certain things, we're not denying the Constitution and lying and dealing with conspiracy theories. It's the truth. America was founded on racism, discrimination, oppression, whatever you want to call it. That's just the sad truth. Right? By threatening to censor content, let me keep reading. It says United States as are also exploring ways to better teach the narrative of racial privilege and injustice that have led to the pervasiveness of institutional racism in America. By threatening to censor content that is found objectionable, the Trump administration is not only treading dangerously on the underlying principles of a free and democratic society. Now, that is very true too. The same laws they say they represent, they are going against them. So the same patriotic statement and there's going against the founding fathers and what they stood for. In its same breath, they're showing themselves to be hypocrites. Because if that's the case, if your forefathers established a country of freedom of religion, freedom of belief, then we should be able to teach about the history of a people. If we are all created equal. If we are created equal, we should equally learn about white folks, Hispanic people, Asians, black people, and we have to be true to the history. This is what it's saying. So if y'all are to live by what y'all saying the founding fathers stood for, how can y'all be against us learning our history? See how hypocritical they are? It is also acting in a deeply hypocritical manner, as it otherwise generally endorses local autonomy on issues of education and school choices, meaning local government should be able to decide what they teach about history. Why in the hell is Trump bothering or in the mix of what people are teaching in history? Especially California. In California, it's left up to the local government on what they decide to teach. Why is Trump saying he's going to stop funding? See? Check this out. But perhaps most troubling of all, Trump's tweet and his argument of his administration and his allies demonstrate a belief that history should be taught in a way that limits criticism of the United States. That's what it's about. Because if true history came out what happened to black people, America would be criticized. It will be looked at in a totally different light. Further, Trump himself has shown that he is willing to take action to constructively censor those whose views of history conflict with those of his administration. See? Anything that's different from what they tell you to believe, they're going to censor you. That's not a part of what the founding fathers fought for, even though they know we didn't fight for us. That's why they're doing what they're doing to us now. But if we are to believe what the founding fathers stood for, Trump and Cotton are going against it. That's not teaching history. That is shaping national propaganda. That's what it is. For a president who proudly proclaims that he has done more for black community than any other president in American history, his efforts to censor the painful story of the black experience in America are a slap in the face to every black person who lived that history from past to present. So Trump denying that's you so-called Negroes, Republican Negroes who voting for Trump, that should be a slap in the face to you because he's trying to censor your true history. But yet you talking about voting for Trump. Okay. Trump is trying to keep you asleep. Listen, American descendants of slavery deserve more than patronizing claims of support for Trump or any politician. They deserve recognition, justice, and reparations. And at the very least, they deserve to have their story told. Why? We've been here 400 plus years. Our story has not been told accurately. Our story has always been told by people like Jessica Krug, white people who are acting like they're black, or just white people altogether. So our history has always been taught in the lens of someone else. So they can't teach you your history with the same passion and thought that a black person who suffered through this. Their ancestors suffered through this. They can't teach it the same. White people can't teach your history like we can't teach about the Holocaust. Though we have sympathy for what happened to the Jewish people, we didn't go through it, so we're not going to teach it with emotion, with deep, and with truth. So when you allow a white person to teach you black history, they're doing the same thing. It don't evolve them, so they're not into it, and they're not into learning and understanding history or black history like a black person would. But this is who they want to teach your children. People who did not experience what you went through. There's a saying where they talk about the black and white church, how it's so different. They said the white church, when they go to church, that's why they get out in time. They go to church, they worship Jesus, and you don't see people falling out and passing out and all that. When you go to a black church, black people suffer so many issues throughout the week that when they go to church, they really place their issues on Jesus. That's why you see them crying and passing out, because black people are really going through things here in America. But when you go to a white church, it's boring because they have no issues to bring to Jesus. They're not being killed by the police disproportionately as black people. We know, yeah, white people are killed by the police, but we have to look at numbers. We make up a small percentage of the United States population, but yet we are being killed more by police than white people, who make up the majority, white males. So they don't have anything to bring to Jesus. Black people do. Hispanic people do. But that goes to show you the cultural context of the two communities and how disconnected we are from one another. And guess what? Trump is trying to further that distance by doing what? Taking out the cultural training that he wanted to do. What was it called? The cultural training that he's trying to take away. Right? By trying to cease diversity training. So he's trying to do that. He don't want each other to understand one another. So how do you do that? And these are the same people you depend on to teach you history. So he's telling you, I don't want them to get to know each other. I don't want truth to come together. I don't want people to have to admit, yeah, we are, white people have privilege, and yeah, we have done this to black. He don't want that, but yet he still want to teach you history. All right. So now let's keep moving. Let's go into another article dealing with the 1619 Project. And after that, we're going to go into it. And I'm going to show you something that's very key that we have to understand. They're fighting hard as they can to keep the 1619 Project out of schools. Remember, let's keep in mind, the 1619 Project is a curriculum dealing with black history, slavery, and racism that black people have to deal with ever since we've been here in America. Right? This is our history. If we are to be fair and honest and follow under the founding fathers, what they believed in, then if we tell black history, we have to tell it how it really happened. Let's go into this. This is another counter argument against the 1619 Project. Okay? This is another counter argument. Let's make it bigger so you can see. Let's read. As teachers get ready for the fall, thousands will be tempted to make use of the 1619 Project curriculum. Offered online by the Pitzler Center, which has formed a partnership with the New York Times to distribute lesson plans built around the essays in the 1619 Project, which were originally published in the New York Times Magazine in August 2019. Teachers and school administrators should resist this temptation. Listen to them. See? This is from the American Revolution Institute of the Society of the Cincinnati. Right? So it says teachers and school administrators should resist this temptation, since academic reviewers including some of the nation's leading historians, have been unyielding in their criticism of the 1619 Project, pointing to numerous errors of fact and interpretation and rejecting its fundamental claim that the nation is defined by racism and was conceived in oppression. So according to them, like I said, this is what they do. We got leading scholars, historians, black or white. I want to know that. Any true historians, black historians, white historians, if they were real historians, would not agree with that. So according to them, they have the project point to let's see. Let me start right here. Teachers and school administration resisted temptation since academic reviewers, including some of the nation's leading historians, have been unyielding in their criticism. This is to make people start doubting if their children should to learn this. So if they say they get good white folks to disagree with it or good historians, then we should disagree with that. And let me put this out here. We're not against white folks, but we have to understand what's going on here. We're not against white people. We have no hatred towards white people. But it wouldn't be good for white people to teach us our own histories. They had 400 years to do it, and they didn't do it right. So apparently now they got a leading historians have been unyielding in their criticism of the 1619 Project. Because every historian in America has this image of America, has the same image that we all see on TV. It's not true. It's just an image. They have this image of America, this great country built on the principles of equality. They all have that. But in reality, it's not real. It's not real. Pointing to numerous errors of fact and interpretation and rejecting its fundamental claims that the nation is defined by racism and was conceived in oppression. I mean, and it's sad that they living in the same country we are and they can't see it. That's why I tell you, other nations have blinders on. I don't expect them to understand. So I'm not upset. I just understand where they're coming from, because if you are another nation or another people, it's no way you will understand black suffering. That's like telling me to understand about the Holocaust. I can relate to it because my people went through it. But say I didn't go through slavery. Say my people didn't go through slavery. It would be hard for me to relate to the Holocaust. It's like me saying, if someone come to me and told me that kid was kidnapped and they found the kid murdered, it will be hard for me to. I'll show sympathy towards it. That's a sad occurrence, but it will be hard for me to truly understand it because I didn't go through it. Similar to these people, their ancestors didn't go through what we went through, so they believe in the illusion that's been taught to them from their childhood. And this is the issue and why we need the 1619 Project, because they have been taught lies, and they really believe in the lies. They really believe that America was just established on equality, that they just came over here and it was just great, that black and white people were working together to make America what it is. That's not the truth. America would not be what it is if it had not been for slavery. If it had not been for them taking the land from the Native American Indians, America would not be what it is without black people. Without black suffering, without slavery, it would not be what it is. Any serious scholar, historian, would tell you that. Now, the project pointed to numerous errors of fact and interpretation and rejecting its fundamental claim that the nation is defined by racism and was conceived on oppression. There are better ways to teach students about history and ordeal of slavery, an important subject that deserves our finest efforts. So to them, white people, it's better ways you can teach us. You had 400 years to teach us. Did you teach us that we were the lost people of Israel? Did you teach us that we came from a rich society in West Africa? Did you tell us we came into America on slave ships? You told us we were swinging from trees, that you did us a favor. Come to find out, West Africa, especially those areas in Babylon, Timbuktu, not Babylon, Timbuktu, but Timbuktu, right? Those areas where the Moors were, you have to attribute mathematics to black people. To where you had Arab scholars before they started taking us into captivity, slavery, they were showing you how rich the culture was. But you told us we were swinging from trees. Then that brings up another question. Why would you get people that were swinging from trees to build your kingdom? That makes no sense. Because when the Babylonians went to attack Jerusalem in Israel, they didn't take the worst of the people. They took the kings first. They took the kings, the princes. They took the goodly men. So you mean to tell me you took the worst of us to build your country? Don't think so. So you had 400 years. They say, well, is there better ways to teach students about history and slavery? So which one? Now it's better ways to do it? Those same academic critics, unfortunately, have not turned their attention to the 1619 project curriculum, which is the means by which the poisonous errors and the coarse misinterpretation of Nicole Hannah Jones and her colleagues will be transmitted like a disease to young Americans. These people act like they really haven't affected us. They act like what they taught us have raised us up from this low level. I mean, the way they talk is like what they teaching us is the truth. Like they teaching us what we need to know, what we've been missing. But you have to understand the tactics here, brothers and sisters. This is how they do. Right? The agitator now plays the victim. Oh, what they're doing is against the morals. What they're doing is racist. Is every academic scholar is critical against this 1619 project. That's how they do. Having issued their learned responses in the pages of the Atlantic or the Wall Street Journal, they may find it sufficient that the 1619 curriculum is a fruit of a poison tree. Meanwhile, these are the same people that taught us that we was in Africa swinging on trees, that lied and tried and deceived us as if the Constitution and the forefathers were writing on our behalf. These are the same people that established black codes, meaning other ways to put us back in slavery through the law. Then they established Jim Crow laws. Then they wouldn't let us drink from white water fountains. We couldn't go into white churches until Brown versus the Board of Education. We couldn't be integrated into white schools. These are the same people. Now we should have to question their integrity, their intent on writing this. Are we the only ones living in this matrix? That's what we have to start asking ourselves. Where are white people living? Are they living on this same planet Earth? But that shows how disconnected they are to reality. That they can't understand and see why this history is important. But guess what? Since it's not being taught by them, they lose the control. Listen, that's not a wise position to take. The radical ideologies promoting Nicole Hannah Jones' grotesque view of America aren't after the mature readers of the Atlantic or the Wall Street Journal. Despite their recent rapid gains, they're sticking to a long game they've been playing for decades, going after young, impressionable minds. Their method is not to persuade, it is to propagandize. Now, it's funny they use that when we just read an article saying the Trump administration is using propaganda. Somebody lying. Right? Let's keep reading here. The simplicity of the radical dialectic, a bipolar world of oppressors and oppressed, without the complexity or confusing contradictions of a more nuanced, realistic view of the past, appeals to many young people. Now, why do it appeal to many young people? Maybe because it answers why we're in this condition. Maybe because it's the truth. Maybe because we don't live in an altered reality like other white people. Maybe because our ancestors really came on slave ships. Maybe because we really suffered through the Jim Crow laws, black codes, civil rights. Maybe because the people actually lived through it. That's why it appeals to many young people, especially black and Hispanic people, because now it answers it answers or addresses the 100-pound, 1,000-pound, million-pound elephant that's in the room. It also simplifies the task of overburdened teachers faced with the challenge of equipping students to interpret a complex and confusing world. It's not that confusing. But these are their excuses on why it should be taught. Well, we shouldn't teach it because there's a lot more to it. We shouldn't teach it because it's so confusing to teachers. It'd be hard to teach on See? Let's keep reading. Listen. The 1619 Project curriculum is actually worse than the dishonest and deceptive material on which it is based. This is what they're talking about. A mature adult reader of the 1619 Project may be equipped to apply critical reasoning to its claims. Particularly, Hannah Jones claimed that the purpose of the American Revolution was to perpetuate slavery. Okay, so now let's look into this. The American Revolution was dealing with taxes, right? And they didn't want to be burdened with the British. And at this time, what they did was so they can keep hold of their own property. That's the point of the American Revolution. And guess what happened? Slaves were considered as property. So if they're fighting for the American Revolution to keep hold of their belongings, slavery has something to do with it too, because slaves were considered as property. I mean, it's basic history. Basic history. See? Dealing with them, the America and the British, and dealing with taxes and property. The Americans wanted to keep their property. Their property were also slaves. So that's what when they fought, they had their property, slaves, in mind. See? But if you're unlearned and you don't really understand true history, and you go off in their revisionist history, how they try to make it seem, and they were just fighting. You gotta ask yourself, why were they fighting all these wars? And what did black people have to do with this? Let's see. Why were they fighting all these wars? They'll say, well, we were fighting for freedom. I'm gonna show you something. Dealing with the American Revolution. I'm gonna let their own scholars talk, right? Let's go here. So what he said was this. What they said was, let me bring it up because I want to show y'all this real quick, so we can make sure we understand we are within the same context. Okay. Go back to the counter argument, and they made the point of bringing out that this lady is just misinformed. Right? It says this 1619 Project curriculum is actually worse than than the dishonest and deceptive material in which it is based. A mature adult reader of the 1619 Project may be equipped to apply critical reasoning to his claims. Particularly, Hannah Jones claimed that the purpose of the American Revolution was to perpetuate slavery, right? Let's go to their own scholars. Revolutionary changes, limitations, slavery, okay? The American Revolution as an anti-tax movement centered on Americans' right to control their own property. In the 18th century, property included human beings. So when she said what she said, within context, it's true. But secular history, of course, they hide those things and say, oh, it was to fight taxes. See, that's what you will learn in secular history when you go to class. They will never tell you that it included slaves. Now, ask yourself, in the 18th century, what was the most profitable industry during that time? Slavery. In many ways, the revolution reinforced American commitment to slavery. See? So when the sister said, when they said, particularly Hannah Jones claimed that the purpose of the American was to perpetuate slavery, let's go back and read it. The American Revolution as an anti-tax movement centered on Americans' right to control their own property. In the 18th century, property included other human beings. In many ways, the Revolutionary War, the American Revolution, reinforced America's commitment to slavery. I wish I had a bum sound up in here. See? Let's listen right here, because what are they fighting for? The right to control their property. And during this time, what was important? Slavery was a central institution in American society during the late 18th century. Late 18th century, right? Let's see when the American Revolution was fought. Let's see, because it says that we have to be in context on what the sister said. It says, in many ways, the revolution reinforced American commitment to slavery. Slavery was, let me go back over here. Slavery was a central institution in the American society during the late 18th century. So if we are fighting the American Revolution, for this to be within the proper context relating to slavery, then we have to put if slavery was a central institution in the late 18th century, then what is the war about? Let's see when the war was fought. Because if the war was fought in the late 18th century, then we can put together and it goes right hand in hand with slavery. Let's see. Let's go over here. The American Revolution was a political revolution which occurred in colonial North America between 1765 and 1783. The American patriots in the 13 colonies defeated the British in the American Revolutionary War, gaining independence from the British Crown, and established the United States, the first modern democracy, and the history's first national explicitly found as a democracy. The American colonists proclaimed no taxation without representations, starting with the Stamp Act Congress of 1765. Right? So this is what you're dealing with. Right? So now I want to see, let's go into the taxes. See, the Parliament finally passed Stamp Act in March 1765, which imposed direct tax on the colony, for the first time. All official documents, newspapers, almanacs, pamphlets were required to have this stamp, even decks of playing cards, everything, because they're going to tax you behind. Also, guess what? Property. So this is what they was fighting against, that the British was going in stamping everything. Everything that was stamped, you had to pay taxes on. So the property also had to do with slaves. And guess what? If you had to pay that, if they stamped them slaves, guess how much money they would have to go? They would have to spend out. Guess how costly that would be to own slaves. So guess what they did? They had to fight against them. They fought against them, which was exactly what they said. Which makes what she said correct. Perpetuate slavery. That's what it was for. Particularly, Hannah Jones claimed that the purpose of the American Revolution was to perpetuate slavery. She's exactly right. Let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, like it, let people know we're live. Also, remember, subscribe to our church channel, Israelite Temple LG. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube, all right? So support us there. All right, so we're going to keep moving here. We are going to keep moving. Let's see. All right, so let's go into this. Now, I want to move in. We got to keep moving. We're going to go faster. I got a couple more things. Now, it's funny that we see that, right? We see that. We take that in consideration, how they're trying their best to fight against the 1619 Project, any history or curriculum that will go in and teach about Black history. Right, so we see that. So you see how the government, Trump, is fighting against that. So his whole cabinet is against it, right? So we see this. It's an agenda to make sure we don't learn our true history. Watch this. Read the title on that. Laws requiring teaching of the Holocaust. So they can't teach you. They're fighting not to teach you your history, but it's laws, it's mandates that require, in America, you to learn about the Holocaust. The Holocaust happened in Germany. It didn't happen in America. Why do we have to learn about the Holocaust in America? We suffered here in America, and they telling us we can't learn about it. But something that happened in Europe, overseas, we have to learn about it here in America. Anybody see a problem with that? Let's reject the 1619 Project. Let's reject that and say it's racist or whatever it may be. But we have to teach about the Holocaust. Now, check this out. Remember, the 1619 Project has to do with Black history, with American history. This history is based on America, about the contact Black people have with white people in America. So the 1619 Project directly affects America. But we have mandates to learn about the Holocaust somewhere, the Holocaust that happened in Germany. How is that? There's laws requiring us to learn about the Holocaust that happened in Germany, but no laws, no mandates for us to learn about a history that we suffered here in America. Let's read. A number of countries maintain laws requiring the presentation or information concerning actions of the government of Germany regarding Jews in its territory during the period of the government's control by the National Socialist Nazi German Workers' Party from 1933 to 1945 during the Holocaust, commonly referred to as the Holocaust. In the United States, laws of this kind are maintained by individual states and typically specify curriculum content and the ages of the pupils to which various portions of the curricula are to be presented. Check this out. Many of the particulars of the conformance with these laws are specified or influenced by policies and pronouncements of the Task Force for International Cooperation of Holocaust Education, Holocaust Remembrance, and Holocaust Research. So this is where they're getting the curriculum from. So it's funny. So let me get this right. The Holocaust, which happened in Germany, we are to teach in America. But the suffering that we suffered in America is not to be taught in America. The 1619 Project, our Holocaust, is not to be taught in America, but something that happened in Germany should be taught in America. Now, let's keep going. Laws prohibiting Holocaust denial are maintained by many, but not all, of the same jurisdictions that have these laws. So there are laws saying that you cannot deny that the Holocaust happened. Let me say it again. There are laws, real laws, that prohibit you from saying the Holocaust did not happen. Let me say it one more time. There are laws in place. You would get in trouble by denying the Holocaust. Legality of Holocaust denial. 16 European countries and Israel have laws against Holocaust denial. Denial of the systematic genocide killing of approximately 6 million Jews in Europe by Nazi Germany in 1930s to 1940s. Many countries have also broadened the laws that criminalizes genocide denial. You'll be a criminal. Laws against Holocaust denial have been proposed in many other countries, in addition to those nations that have criminalized such acts, including the United States. Just wanted to show you that. So not only do you have to teach the Holocaust in schools in the United States, they're soon going to bring over here, if you deny it, they'll count you as a criminal. A criminal. You'll be in trouble for having your own opinion. Now it's funny that now none of your rights of freedom of speech, freedom of to think how you want, none of that stuff applies when it comes to the Jewish people. We see this. It's a crime to deny the Holocaust. Oh man, this is funny. I just wanted to show you that. So the reason why I'm showing this, anybody just coming in, is they are fighting against us learning the 1619 Project over in a place where it happened to us, which is a part of American history. They denying us, they want us to censor the true American history as it relates to black people in America, but then want us to learn about history of Jewish people and the Holocaust that happened in Germany in between the 1930s and the 1940s. And his laws requiring you what to teach. Y'all don't see an issue with that? All right, so now let's go to the second portion of that. I hope y'all are edified with that. We finished with that. Listen, personally, I support. Oh, this is what I want to do. Let me just go into that. It's nothing within the 1619 Project that I deem to be racist. It's the truth, right? I went to it. This is the website you can go to, and I recommend you, brothers and sisters, go to it and use this as a foundation to teach your children, especially us that it take time to get this information. So use this information to your advantage, right? And if you click on these, you will understand. It goes into the resource. She adds, these are questions, resource overview, right? Like this question here, it says, this is what's in this thing that they so scared of. Number one, how do societal structures developed to support the enslavement of black people and the anti-black racism that was cultivated in the U.S. to justify slavery? influence many aspects of modern laws, policy, systems, and culture. They're trying to make it seem like this question is not, it's not, that it's not true. That they trying to, for some reason, that this question right here, or this whole thing altogether, is misinformation. Listen, let me read it again. How do societal structures develop to support the enslavement of black people and the anti-black racism that was cultivated in the U.S. to justify slavery? That is a known fact. That anti-black racism was established to institute slavery. The Southern Baptists used the Bible in the Curse of Ham to justify slavery, right? Right when the northern states wanted to abolish slavery, they needed a way to cultivate or to continue slavery, and they used religion. These things are elementary. I mean, this is easy history. And through that, it influenced many aspects of modern laws. What are modern laws? Affirmative action, right? Discrimination acts that were placed on black people because of the origin of our encounter with Americans and living here in America. So based off that, modern laws and policies had to change in support for black people and to the degradation of black people. That destroyed us. What she's saying is true. She asking the question. How did this stuff support enslavement of black people? Number 2, how have resistance, innovation, and advocacy by black Americans over the course of American history contributed contributed to the nation's wealth and the strengthening of its democracy? This is what they're fighting against, brothers and sisters. Right? This is what they're fighting against. You go into it. Excerpt. This is what they're fighting against. See? But when you listen, these are some more questions. How does the author describe capitalism in the United States? Black people need to learn about capitalism, communism. They need to learn about socialism. They need to learn about what society that we live in. They need to learn about these things. Black people don't know. So what she's doing, she's giving you books to read. Capitalism by Matthew Desmond, pages 30 to 40. Read that and you will see what impact capitalism has not only in the United States, but on the whole world. Now you will understand why only a select few of people have the riches and everybody else are poor. See? The Indian Removal Act of 1830, Mexican-American War, westward expansion. All these things you need to learn about. And this is what Trump is keeping from the masses of people. How did slavery in the U.S. contribute to the development of the global financial industry? How did it? What current financial system reflects practice developed to support industries built on work of enslaved people? That's a communist movement or capitalist movement where it get rich off the profit or the work of poor people. See? So what current financial systems reflect practices developed to support industries built on the work of enslaved people? Capitalism. This is what they're fighting against. And then they try to say, well, what she's bringing out is information that has been exposed by leading scholars. Everybody, at some point, you don't need scholars. Sometimes it's just common damn sense. We live in a world where we see that the majority of the population of the world are poor, considering the top 1% who have all the money. That's just common sense. Common sense. Right? So at your own time, go back and look at this. This is what they're fighting against. This is what they're fighting against. Referring to the text of the Declaration of Independence, answer the following questions. What are the values stated in the Declaration of Independence? How is that racist? How is that bad for black people? She's asking what values stated in the Declaration of Independence. In what way can you in what ways can you see those values working in contemporary American life? How can we say, if we are to use the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, all of those things, whatever you want to call them, how can we apply these things in a contemporary way to where it affects everybody equally? What's wrong with that? In what ways can you see them failing? How has the interpretation of those values changed over time? Who is responsible for creating those changes? This is what Trump is against. This is what Trump is against. Because it goes into the history of what was going on. It goes into the dark history of what happened to black people in America. Listen, look at this question. Number 5, how does the origin story of the U.S. change if we mark the beginning of the U.S. history in 1619 instead of 1776? That's a very good question. Remember, we were over, I don't agree with the 1619 start date, but hey, in the context of this, we know of so-called America found its independence in 1776. But we were already here working prior to that. See, they just tell you July 4th, 1776, and they think after that, that's when slaves came. No, slaves had already been built in America way before that. So she's saying, imagine if the story changed in 16 and we bring in when the first blacks came over here and add them into the story. What will be the narrative of America now? See? So when you go into this 1619 project, you'll understand why it's a threat to America, why it's a threat to Donald Trump, why he don't want the truth to get out, right? You'll see that, right? So let me continue. So now let's move on to that. And like I said, when you get your own time, I think brothers and sisters, especially black and Hispanic people, you should go into the 1619 project, look it up. Of course, I don't know it for surely. I just had a small amount of time to actually deal with this. But from what I see, it seems like it's something useful. We might not agree with everything that's in there, but hey, it's a start. It's better than what we're receiving now. And we must fight to keep these things. And if our children are in public schools, then we must fight and support and donate to these things so our children can receive the proper history. Now watch this. All right, so now let's go into the second part that I wanted to go into, right? Let's go into Senate Bill 145, right? And we're going to be quick on this, real quick. We're going to be quick on this. All right, we're already 2 hours in, so we're going to be quick on this. It's important that we understand this right here, brothers and sisters. The world we live in now is really going down quickly into the pits of hell, Satan. Right? So we must understand the time that we're living in. Right? So this what I'm going to bring is kind of disturbing. So, and especially if you have children, and especially if you live in California, you need to really take heed to this. All right? So now, let's go into this. This is, if you haven't heard, the Senate Bill 145 is a bill pretty much giving the judge discretion on who should register as a sex offender. Okay? So let's go into a basic understanding of before we go into what it really means. Okay? So this Senate bill was passed by Senator Weiner. So we're going to say Senator Weiner. Okay? Keep that name in mind. So this bill is to do what? Let's read. It says the bill will exempt from mandatory registration under the act this bill will exempt from mandatory registration under the act a person convicted of certain offenses involving minors if the person is not more than 10 years older than the minor, and if that offense is the only one requiring the person to register. So in other words, it will be up to the judge's discretion if a person rapes a child, as long as they are within 10 years older than, or within the 10-year period of so if the child is 15 and the person is 25, they're within 10 years of that age group, they might not have to apply or register to be a sex offender. Let me say it again. If the person is no more than 10 years older than the person they molested, raped, they might not have to apply as a sex offender. Keep this name in mind, Senator Weiner, right? So now, let's go to another. I want to go to another one and show you something else, right? So keep in mind what we're reading here. According to the new Senate Bill 145 that goes in effect next year, 2021, if you have a child and the child is raped or, is raped, as long as that person is within 10 is not over 10 years older than the person they raped, they might not have to register as a sex offender. It's up to the judge. So what is this saying? You will have no clue who's a pedophile around you. Right now we have sources where you can see, well, okay, let me see who all the pedophiles are in the area. And you can pull up and it shows you. Listen, the new law in California is if that person is not more than 10 years older than the minor that they had sex with, that they raped, they might not have to register as a sex offender. Why do I keep saying that? Brothers and sisters, look at where we're going. Look how dangerous it is. They have no sympathy for the victims. They care nothing for children. They care nothing for the parents who's trying their best to parent their children. It's already hard enough to parent your children in this society. Now they're making it harder because you don't know who's a sex offender. And now they're making it harder for you to identify sex offenders. Now watch this. Let's get a better understanding of this law, right? Now, it took me a while to understand it because it was all over the place. So if a child is 15, the person that they have perform a sexual act on is 25. See, let me say it again. If a person that's 25 years old rapes a 15-year-old, he might not have to apply to be a sex offender. He might not. I keep saying it because the world that we live in now is really going to a place of no return. And it's very scary that our children are living in this type of evil and wickedness. Watch this. What is the Senate bill? Let's get it close. Let's get an example of it. Look, watch this. Watch this, brothers and sisters. Let's go into what is Senate Bill 145, right? And it's dealing with California. So if you're in California, make sure you watch your children because now it gives sex offenders, pedophiles, free reign. Though they still would be in trouble by law, that's one less deterrent now they have to worry about. Because now they can say, well, as long as I'm within 10 years of who I'm raping, I might not have to apply to be a sex offender. This is what's going on in their mind. Long as I'm within 10 years, I can go and lure a child. I might get in trouble, serve a couple years in prison, but get out and not have to register as a sex offender. Depending on how the judge feels. Listen, watch this. Senate Bill 145. Current California law treats cases of statutory rape differently depending on what kind of sex is had. For a case involving a young adult and a minor where vaginal intercourse took place, a judge has discretion where to place the person convicted of statutory rape of the sex offender registry. So it has, when it's dealing with vaginal sex, prior to this law, if a young adult, a male, and a young female had sexual intercourse, vaginal intercourse, it will be up to the judge whether that person, the perpetrator, the male, it will be up to the judge whether he will have to register as a sex offender. Now let's go to the second part here. The judge does not have any discretion when the case involves anal or oral sex. At this point, you brothers and sisters that are learned and know what's going on, you should see where we going here. What do y'all think we going here when they start talking like this? It's a certain community that they always try to protect. And what I find out, you're going to see, we're going to go into it. So now, Senate Bill 145 will eliminate automatic sex offender registration for young adults who have anal or oral sex with a minor. So prior to that, if you had oral or anal sex, you would automatically have to register as a sex offender. Instead, a judge would make the decision just as they do now in cases involving vaginal intercourse. So this law, according to them, is to pretty much make the law equal, make it fair, right? So now both instances, if a person goes and have anal or oral sex with a minor, then it'll still be up to the judge now, according to this new bill, Senate Bill 145, it'll be up to the judge whether they should register as a sex offender. Senate Bill 145 would apply only to cases involving minors between the ages of 14 and 17 and an offender within a 10-year range. Look at that. So now offenders are saying, okay, well, as long as I'm within that 10-year range, I might not have to apply to be I might not have to register to be a sex offender. Let's go into the origins of it. Why was it important for them to create it? State Senator Scott Weiner, Democrat. See, listen, all you black people that's Democrats, the Democrats are trying to let your children be around sex offenders. Scott Weiner, Democrat of San Francisco, who authored the Senate Bill 145, says current law discriminates against the LGBT community. See, this is the point of it. Senate Bill 145 is an anti-discrimination law, Warner said. It ends discrimination against LGBT people on the sex offender registry. So in other words, they also now, if you're homosexual and you like little kids, you like to molest little kids, then you'll have the same right to where you leave it up to the judge whether you're a sex offender or not. See? So the whole point was to protect the LGBT community because what the only group that participate in anal and oral sex on that level is LGBT, homosexuals. So therefore, this guy, Scott Weiner, had to even it up by now adding if you have anal or oral sex, it will be still up to the discretion of the judge whether you should register as a sex offender. Weiner says the bill has been the subject of a massive misinformation campaign and social media posts that claim it legalizes pedophilia are not true. So this is an example Mr. Weiner gives, right? He says a 19-year-old has a 17-year-old girlfriend and they have sex. That is statutory rape. Why? Because she's 17, okay? But the law right now says that the judge does not have to put the 19-year-old boy on sex offender registry because of the kind of sex they were having. Weiner said, but if it's a 19-year-old boy having sex with a 17-year-old boyfriend, the judge may put the 19-year-old into a sex offender registry even if it was completely consensual, even if both were boyfriends, even if there was nothing coerced or predatory about it. See the meaning of the law now? It's to open up the doors for the LGBT community to be more comfortable to rape children. Now, that's the law, right? That's the law. Now, I got a question real quick. Wouldn't it have been easier? I want y'all to see. I want y'all to see the screen. I got a question. Wouldn't it have been easier just to revert the law back to the old law to make both of them have to register to be sex offenders? It'd have been easier that way. Why make a law more open when you can make it the same? Because you could have easily did it like the other law. You could have made the one where the vaginal sex, the person that was having vaginal sex with a minor, that it would be automatically or mandatory for them to register as sex offenders. You could have just done that and you didn't have to change the law. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? Why open up the law and allow people in their minds to say, well, this is a less of a deterrent for me to doing it, when you can just make the law change the other law where it says it's a judge discretion whether the vaginal sex, and make that just no, you got to automatically register as a sex offender. That'd have been a lot easier and better. That would have been a lot easier and better than just open up both laws now. It's an agenda, brothers and sisters. Now watch this, though. Watch this. Remember Scott Weiner, right? Scott Weiner. Keep that in mind. Let me show you a picture of him. Watch this. Remember, I told you, watch. Just stay with me. Stay with me. Stay with me. Because you have to see what's going on here. It's a lot deeper than you think. Look at my screen. Where is he at? Does it make sense now? He's a homosexual. He's an openly gay senator in California. And let me quote you something that he said, right? Let's go back. Let me quote you something that he said. Let's see. Let me get the quote here. This is from Scott Weiner's YouTube page. It says this, and I quote, "As a gay man, I've been fighting for the LGBT community for 25 years. For people living with or at risk of HIV, for our LGBT youth and seniors, for our trans brothers and sisters, for our entire community, I'm honored to have the support of so many LGBT community leaders, including people in this video. I will always fight for the community and will take the fight to the Senate, the state Senate." He's also said he's a champion for LGBT. See, this is who we have in politics. They don't care about the interests of the people at whole. It's all an agenda to support their interests. So I will continue to keep asking that same question. Why not just make the other law, the vaginal law, where the adult male was having vaginal sex with the underage female? Why not just make that mandatory? Make that a mandatory sex registration, sexual offender registration. Why open the other thing up? It makes no sense. Makes no sense. But what they're deep down in doing. So now I want to show you this real quick, and we're gonna get ready to close out. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I know we on 2 hours and 30 minutes, but I wanted to show you this because it goes into the whole program of what's going on here, right? All right. So now, when you understand what's truly going on, now I'm gonna want to play this before I go into this. This is the same guy. Look on your screen that did this. This is the same guy that wanted to, and I quote, "New California law reduces penalty for knowingly exposing someone to HIV." This is the same guy, Scott Weiner. See right here. At the bottom, Democrat Scott Weiner and Todd Gloria authored the legislation. New California law reduces penalty for knowingly exposing someone to HIV. This was in 2017. This is the same guy just opened the door, just made it a less of a deterrent to now go and molest children. Well, he just made it an open door for the LGBT community. Now they don't have to worry about registering as a sex offender. It's up to the judge. So as long as I'm within that 10-year range, it's a possibility I might have to register as a sex offender. So what's holding me back from getting caught? See, the embarrassment was you had to register as a sex offender. Now, if that's a possibility that's taken away, that's less of a deterrent. Before we close out, I'm going to show you something else. Now, this is the reason why they're doing this. Now, check this video out, brothers and sisters. Just like they're doing with if you don't understand the early sodomy laws, remember, it was illegal to be a sodomite in America. You would go to jail. And in some countries, you would still be killed, especially in Africa and the Middle East. They still have the death penalty if you're homosexual. So what I'm doing is I'm showing you the parallels between how they made sodomy and homosexual a normal thing. They're getting ready to do that with pedophilia. This is how they did the same steps you see now with these bills. That's the same thing they did with sodomy, with the homosexuality agenda. At first, it was a crime. They decriminalized it. Then they took it away. They declassified it as a mental illness and said it was a choice. They're getting ready to do that now with pedophilia. We've seen this thing happen before. The same steps that they took to make homosexuality normal, they're taking the same steps with pedophilia. Let me show you. Watch this. I want to show you a trailer to a movie that was on Netflix, right? Netflix got in a bunch of trouble. I mean, not Netflix, but Amazon got in a bunch of trouble. And I think they took it down in the U.S. I don't know if it's playing in other countries, but I know it's down here. Check this out, brothers and sisters. Check this out.
Pedophilia is the actual sexual interest, regardless of whether a person buries it and never tells a soul and never does anything about it their entire life, or if they actually act on it.
Pedophiles are arguably the most demonized people in society. New research is showing that understanding them is the first step in lowering instances of child sexual abuse. Pedophilia expert Dr. James Cantor's groundbreaking and controversial hypothesis that pedophilia is a developmental disorder in the brain resulting in sexual attraction to children attempts to demystify the causes of pedophilia. This documentary does not seek to vilify or condemn pedophiles, or to undermine the concerns and fears of parents and society, but rather to understand pedophilia and its cause. I, Pedophile.
Check that out. So if you go back and you go to the DSM-3, where they declassified, they said sodomy, homosexuality was a mental disease. They said homosexuality was a mental disease. And the DSM-3, 1973, they declassified it as a mental disease. And in, I want to say in 1980, and then in 1980, they made further changes. In 1994, they removed it altogether. This is the step that they are in pedophilia. Same steps that they took, right? Same steps that they took with sodomy. How at first it was a crime. After it was a crime, it was a mental illness. Now it's no longer a mental illness. Now it's acceptable. It's just a sexual preference. If you look at what's happening to pedophiles, if you see what's happening in the law, They're decriminalizing it as we speak. At the point to where you wouldn't know where a pedophile is. Around who, you won't know. So the same steps that they took to normalize homosexuality, they're doing it to normalize pedophilia. Okay? If you have time, go up and look at the sodomy laws in America. You will see a striking similarities between what you're seeing now. Small steps here and there to normalize homosexuality. Small steps here and there to normalize pedophilia. They're doing the same thing. I said a couple years ago, pretty soon they will start to normalize pedophilia. You're starting to see documentaries come out now saying that, hey, this is not a crime. This is a mental illness. Pretty soon it will no longer be a mental illness. It'll be a sexual preference. We have said that if you have to be fair in America, right? If you allow something that you call a deviant, unnatural behavior before dealing with homosexuality, you also have to deem what pedophilia is a deviant, unnatural act as natural. What's the difference? Oh, they're children. Well, it shouldn't be a crime. According to your law, it shouldn't be a crime for them to think about having a sexual or being sexual aroused to children by just thinking, because according to that's no crime. Right? But what we're seeing is exactly what we saw with the sodomy. Sodomy at one time was called a deviant, unnatural behavior. Likewise, it's called that in the Bible. Right? That terminology comes from the Bible. It's unnatural. It's unseemly. It's vain. That same label was placed on sodomy. That same label has been placed on pedophilia. But if we are to be fair in this wicked society, if you allow one group to do it, you have to allow this other group to do it. That's how it works. You cannot praise one group and demonize the other. But see, brothers and sisters, that's what happened when you open up the door of sin. Sin leads to another sin. Sin leads to another sin. Then pretty soon you have a house full of sin, and you have to cater to everybody's personal feelings. When you go away from the Most High God and you establish your own truth, this is what happens to you. Everything the Bible says in Leviticus 20:13, man shall not lie with mankind like he lie with woman. It is an abomination. It is unseemly. It is unnatural. We should honor that and know that God, the creator of everything, knows what's best for us. But now, since we allow man to operate in his own feelings, everybody has what they feel is right in their own hearts. That's why in the Proverbs it says every man, and Psalms it says that every man is right in his own eyes. Every man does what he feels is right. And that's why the world we live in is so wicked. Because everything that might be right in your eyes is not profitable for the next person. Why not leave it up to the Most High God? Right? Brothers and sisters, be mindful, be careful, watch your children. Pray to the Most High God. Remove your children out these wicked systems. Like I've always said, one of my favorite scriptures is what Paul says. We are being vexed on every side. Not only are we being vexed in school, with our children learning false history, now we have a movement to stop true history from being taught. Not only that, we have to watch out for people that potentially might be pedophiles, and there's no way for us to find out. Right? So with that, brothers and sisters, I appreciate y'all tuning in with me tonight. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, Israelite Temple of the Living God. We will be live on on Fridays at 8 p.m. Also on Saturday at 3 p.m. Our Breaking Babylon channel will be live every Wednesday at 7:30. So support it, subscribe to our channels. Also, we have banners at the bottom. If you would like to support financially to the work, it will help us, right, to spread this word. If not, you can support by liking the video. Like and subscribe to letting people know we're live, okay? If you have any questions for me, you can email me at israelitetempleLG@gmail.com. That's our church. If you have a church question, if you have anything you want a question about the Breaking Babylon podcast show, you can email me at BreakinBabylon@gmail.com. Okay, so that's our information. Until next week, brothers and sisters, stay blessed, stay positive, stay on the right side of the Most